Returning to the exterior of the house, Jin-Huk gazes upon his skeletal warriors and declares his newfound redundancy for such companions. He proceeds to shatter the skeletal entities, awakening the ethereal essences of the kobolds he had vanquished. Despite a mild sense of disappointment stemming from their inability to communicate, his attention abruptly shifts to Vulcan, who now stands in his human guise. Incredulously, Vulcan questions Jin-Huk's audacity in utilizing him as a spirit soldier. With an insidious grin, Jin-Huk remarks that this marks his first encounter with Vulcan in this form, further noting Vulcan's probable handsomeness during his youth. Consumed by fury at Jin-Huk's disrespect, Vulcan bellows vehemently, vowing not to let such affronts pass unchallenged. After all, he is the original spirit master. However, Vulcan's ire quickly subsides as an enigmatic force constricts his throat, compelling him to bow before Jin-Huk. In a commanding tone, Jin-Huk cautions Vulcan against excessive resistance, elucidating that his very existence is sustained by Jin-Huk. Severing this connection would precipitate Vulcan's immediate dissolution. With his head still bowed, Vulcan retorts, questioning Jin-Huk's presumption that he will be so easily dominated. Yet Jin-Huk's voice drips with menace as he reminds Vulcan of the dire consequences of defiance, namely being transmuted into soul orbs and subsequently absorbed. He prompts Vulcan to recollect the trait that defines him, which Vulcan acknowledges as gluttony. This recollection evokes the memory of Jin-Huk's insatiable skill, stoking Vulcan's realization that resistance would merely result in being devoured whole by Jin-Huk's overwhelming power. Following a period of contemplation, Vulcan capitulates, conceding that he possesses no alternative but to acquiesce to Jin-Huk's commands. With a sense of resignation, Vulcan inquires about Jin-Huk's intended course of action. Jin-Huk's outstretched finger points towards a distant castle, signaling their joint mission to topple the Cobalt Lord. At the castle's entrance, two kobolds strive to impede Jin-Huk's advance. However, Jin-Huk responds with a sinister smile, summoning his spiritual entities which promptly dispatch the Cobalt Sentinels. Inwardly, Jin-Huk acknowledges his augmentation a retinue of 30 Cobalt spirit soldiers now under his command. He notes with confidence that kobolds are no longer worthy adversaries. Determined not to remain passive in this existence, Jin-Huk stands resolute, ordering the kobolds to present their master. Within the castle's confines, the Cobalt Lord directs one of his Cobalt guards to prepare an offering. Simultaneously, beyond the castle walls, Jin-Huk engages in a relentless campaign, utterly annihilating every Cobalt he encounters. Empowered by his spirits, he stands virtually impervious to harm. As a smile graces Jin-Huk's lips, he reminisces about his surroundings, realizing that he's drawing closer to the inner chamber of the Cobalt Lord. Abruptly, a message from Baal appears, informing Jin-Huk of the deity's support, symbolized by the display of luminous batons. Emitting an exasperated sigh, Jin-Huk dismisses the encouragement, rejecting the notion of cheering from an elderly figure with her suit legs. He confidently asserts his impending victory regardless. Shifting back to the Cobalt Lord's realm, a harrowing scene unfolds as the Lord repeatedly impales a hapless victim, demanding more with fervor. He vocalizes his dissatisfaction, insisting that the sacrifices must continue until the entity known as the death-observing demon is appeased. In a sudden shift, two goblins materialize, restraining a young woman adorned with horns. The Goblin Lord identifies her as a Doabe, invoking the significance of these legendary beings from Korean mythology and folklore. The Cobalt Lord seizes the Doab, asserting that she will serve as a far superior offering compared to mere humans. However, a luminous burst of light erupts, sundering the connection between the Cobalt Lord and the Doabe. This unexpected turn draws the Cobalt Lord's attention, causing his gaze to lock onto Jin-Huk, whom he labels an intruder. Unfazed, Jin-Huk's smile takes on an ominous quality as he jests. What do we have here? A human sacrifice? A summoning? Yet Jin-Huk quickly dismisses the significance of these events in relation to his central goal, recognizing that all those present are destined to meet their demise. Jin-Huk gazes upon the Cobalt Lord and remarks that it bears an uncanny resemblance to the wretched scum leader. He is truly enraged by Jin-Huk's comment. The Cobalt Lord demands that Jin-Huk display some respect. However, Jin-Huk slyly counters that the Lord's arrogance far outweighs its status as a mere first-floor monster. The Doai, though unsure of the situation, recognizes that the Cobalt Lord is preoccupied by Jin-Huk's presence, granting her the opportunity to flee. Spotting her escape, the Cobalt Lord bellows in anger, questioning how she dares to run. Seeking strength from the death-observing demon, the Cobalt Lord captures Jin-Huk's attention. The Cobalt Lord then unleashes a devastating attack known as the Corpse Spear aimed directly at the Doai. As she stumbles and falls, her inner thoughts echo her reluctance to meet her end here. In an unexpected turn, Jin-Huk materializes to shield her from the assault, effortlessly thwarting the strike. The Cobalt Lord is left utterly stunned, bewildered by Jin-Huk's ability to effortlessly deflect the onslaught. Grateful, the Doai expresses her thanks, but Jin-Huk sternly instructs her to vacate the area. A closer inspection reveals her to be a Doai, a powerful species residing on the H100th floor, and Jin-Huk asserts that they shouldn't concern themselves with matters beneath that level, particularly an individual who has yet to reach adulthood. Curious about the girl's situation, Jin-Huk decides to save her, anticipating the acquisition of valuable useful information. The Cobalt Lord protests Jin-Huk's interference with its offering, prompting Jin-Huk to warn her to find a hiding spot as he won't rescue her a second time. Undeterred, the Cobalt Lord readies a menacing attack, preparing to unleash 2 explosive Cobalts. However, Jin-Huk remains unfazed, taunting that it's too slow before delivering a forceful blow that propels the Cobalt Lord into the air. The Cobalt Lord's astonishment deepens, grappling with the incongruity of a first-floor climber possessing such formidable strength. As Jin-Huk springs into the air, poised to deliver a powerful punch to the Cobalt Lord, the latter beseeches the death-observing demon for salvation. In response, the blood amassed by the Cobalt Lord over decades coalesces into a blood golem which seizes Jin-Huk. Perplexed, Jin-Huk ponders how the Cobalt Lord managed to summon such a potent familiar. The golem hurls Jin-Huk to the ground with considerable force, evoking triumphant laughter from the Cobalt Lord, who dubs this formidable spectacle his seance. Jin-Huk, in a menacing tone, repeats the term seance before demanding whether the Cobalt Lord comprehends the individual he's addressing. With determination, Jin-Huk summons his spirits, vowing to obliterate the blood golem and demonstrate the true power of a seance. The Cobalt Lord is left dumbfounded by the swiftness with which Jin-Huk dismantles the golem. Fixing the Cobalt Lord with an intense gaze, Jin-Huk highlights that blood golems are not within a Cobalt's purview to create, even if it's a Lord monster. He inquires whether the death-observing demon Bun played a part in this, to which the demon confirms. Jin-Huk recalls that Bun, intrigued by his abilities as a spirit master, summoned the blood golem upon witnessing his confrontation with one of its followers. Jin-Huk dismisses the golem as a mere plaything, noting that Bun forcibly depleted the Cobalt Lord's mana through its summoning. Fearing retribution even in death, the Cobalt Lord wails that Bun will avenge him. Jin-Huk dryly retorts that the Cobalt should ensure that Bun follows through, given the weight of his actions. As the spirit Cobalt seizes the Cobalt Lord, it defiantly proclaims its kingship, imploring them to remember. Jin-Huk wisely informs Bun that this marks the end of its little experiment, emphasizing that it's at fault for testing him. With a gaze oozing menace, Jin-Huk declares that in addition, Bun will pay for attempting to challenge him. The death-observing demon Bun responds with hearty laughter, expressing its admiration. As Jin-Huk clenches his fist, a splatter of blood paints the scene, and a demonic incarnation of Jin-Huk emerges within the pool of Cobalt blood on the floor. As the essence of the Cobalt Lord tries to escape, Jin-Huk seizes it and transforms it into a soul orb. This act, soul orb production, is a fundamental skill of a necromancer, enabling the user to gather valuable components. Jin-Huk opens his mouth, consumes the substantial spirit ball. Pausing briefly, he contemplates that it didn't live up to his expectations, though it won't matter once he reaches the 50th floor. His thoughts are interrupted by a young woman who expresses gratitude for her rescue, identifying herself as Haru. She extends her thanks, and Jin-Huk reassures her, explaining his presence was due to dealing with the Cobalt Lord. However, Haru remains insistent on thanking him for saving her life. Out of the blue, Jin-Huk questions what she would have done if he were a malevolent individual capable of harming her and exploiting her like a doab. Haru's tone takes on a menacing edge as she asserts that she would handle such a situation. Jin-Huk ponders that when it comes to repaying favors and seeking revenge, they are vigilant about settling their debts. With a chuckle, Jin-Huk likens her response to that of a doabe. He inquires about her presence on a lower floor despite seemingly belonging on the 100th floor. Haru discloses that a group attacked the doabe village on the 100th floor, leaving Jin-Huk taken aback. Jin-Huk reflects that doabs are a robust species within the tower, posing a challenge even for climbers. He wonders if the attackers were part of the 4 great species: the Colossus of Strength Giants, the Essence of Magic Dragons, the Masters of Demonic Energy Demons, and the Wings of Retribution Angels. These 4 dominate the tower's hierarchy. Jin-Huk speculates that the attackers would have had to possess some connection to these species or their guilds. Deciding to depart, Jin-Huk asks Haru if she intends to remain amid pools of blood. She expresses her desire to accompany him, and he contemplates that, despite her youth, she could be a valuable addition to his group. He informs her of his impending busy schedule and inability to provide constant protection. She asserts her ability to fend for herself. Jin-Huk remarks that she narrowly escaped death from the Cobalt Lord, but she playfully retorts that her lapse in vigilance caused that. Surveying his blood-stained attire, Jin-Huk privately acknowledges the need for new clothing. His gaze shifts to the Cobalt Lord, catching sight of an equipment item. Stepping out of the castle in his fresh new attire, a portal emerges, heralding Vulcan's arrival to confirm the extermination of all living Cobalts within the castle. Haru inquires about the identity of the old man, prompting Vulcan's astonishment at her ability to see him. Haru explains that a select few doabs possess a strong affinity with souls. With a knowing smile, Jin-Huk concludes that Haru is a unique doabi. He briefly entertains the thought of using gluttony to absorb her ability, but decides against it, choosing instead to keep her close and train her. Jin-Huk is investing in a respectable system notification materializing, presenting Jin-Huk with the Monster Wave quest, an invitation to defeat a Lord monster that could trigger a monster wave. Both Vulcan and Haru advise him against accepting it, yet Jin-Huk reasons that he wouldn't have embarked on this journey if he didn't intend to accept challenges despite criticism from others. Jin-Huk's decision prompts concern from a deity called Peak of All Evil, and a death-observing demon offers a reward for ranking first in contribution. With a confident grin, Jin-Huk resolves to decide after seeing the reward. Vulcan expresses disbelief, questioning if Jin-Huk truly wishes to tempt fate. Jin-Huk acknowledges that Vulcan might wish for his death for the sake of freedom, but he changes his stance, asserting that Vulcan will remain his servant even beyond death. Confirming his choice with a press of a button, the system broadcasts a notice of a looming monster wave in Coral Village's first-floor safety zone. Villagers ponder the identity of the person who accepted the perilous quest. A climber advises those who completed the quest to hasten to the second floor before the wave's onslaught, emphasizing that once it begins, escape becomes impossible. A brilliant light bathes the forest, releasing countless kobolds, evoking screams of terror from the assembled climbers who fear their impending demise. Yet a sudden burst of light reveals only Jin-Huk and his companions emerging unscathed. Jin-Huk asserts that if anyone dares to touch even a single cobalt, he will swiftly unleash a wave of destruction upon all of them. The climbers find themselves pondering over the identities of the main character and his companions, who caution them about the perilous situation. However, Jin-Huk astonishes everyone by summoning his spirit soldiers, leaving them in awe as they wonder how he acquired such a class on the first floor amidst the chaos. How do you ask Jin-Huk if she too can attempt to achieve the Slayer title? Jin-Huk advises her to act swiftly, as he doubts the spirit soldiers will leave her any opportunity. Calming her concerns, Haru shares her plan, invoking a skill called a pocket plane. To Jin-Huk's surprise, she extracts a sword from this plane and deftly eliminates a cobalt. Jin-Huk privately acknowledges the extraordinary nature of the sword and its wielder, a young Doab who wields it with mastery. A realization dawns on Jin-Huk, causing him to speculate whether the invader's target is Haru. Amidst this turmoil, a climber named Kim Suai confronts Jin-Huk, questioning his authority over the wave. In response, Jin-Huk calmly inquires about Kim's identity, prompting Kim to proudly introduce himself as a member of the White Swallow Guild, a subsidiary of the renowned 9-star Pelon siblings Holy Land Guild. Tension rises as Jin-Huk's anger surfaces upon mention of the Pelon siblings. Kim further boasts that he and his brother plan to join the guild upon reaching the 10th floor. Kim's observation of Jin-Huk's remarkable skills leads to an offer to help him join the guild through his brother in a timely manner. A spirit seizes Kim, providing Jin-Huk with a moment to extract information from him. Jin-Huk issues a veiled threat, implying that they'll meet again after the wave, for Jin-Huk has questions demanding answers. However, other climbers chastise Jin-Huk, disapproving of his intimidation tactics. Jin-Huk dismissively explains that within the tower, strength prevails, unlike on Earth where societal norms restrain certain actions. As Jin-Huk releases Kim, he cautions him to heed his words, using his need for information as his sole reason for sparing him. He urges the climbers to distance themselves from him, rather than provoke him further. The climbers, concerned about their friend, discuss their course of action. In a surprising twist, Kim advises them to flee, fearing the consequences of encountering Jin-Huk once more on the battlefield. Jin-Huk and Vulcan adopt a menacing demeanor as they execute a powerful attack from the sky, overwhelming the kobolds. As they land, they summon their soldiers, further turning the tide against the cobalt forces. Jin-Huk instructs Vulcan to transform the fallen into skeletons, a request Vulcan dismisses, stating it's unnecessary to remind him. With a resolute stride, Jin-Huk engages the kobolds in combat, dispatching them swiftly and gracefully. Meanwhile, Haru, fatigued, falls victim to a cobalt ambush, resulting in a severe injury.